Well, I sort of got my camera working again. Sounds not great still, I get that. Went through tearing apart some batteries trying to figure out what was wrong with it. It was the battery charger. But I'm figuring that out now, and I decided I'm getting back into working on the guns. I had to take a break for a project I was working on. I'm done with that project. It was a gift for my wife. Yeah, it's done. I'm moving on. Gotta clean all this off and get a fresh start with the gun, get back to the project we were at before, and see if we can finish up the gun. The rubber band guns, that is. Got most of them finished. I shouldn't say finished. I got most of them started. I got that last one to do. I'm going to catch us back up where we left off at. But first, we're going to clean this mess up so we have a nice work table to do all our work from. That's a table we can work with. New shop chair.
Here I am checking the warp in the gun. It's got a lot of warp in the boards. They sat down here in the basement for about a month now since I cut all of them. And this is the last gun I'm putting together. Definitely needs to be sanded here. A little bit on the edges, kind of rough. So I've got to get some sanding in to get this finished. Going to go ahead and glue them together and do the sanding afterwards. In order to get that warp out, I think I'm going to go ahead and put a little reverse warp in when I nail it down. Just trying to figure that out right now. We'll have to add the switch and wires before we can go and do all the other stuff, because you can't glue it together completely until you have all these switch and wires in there. Gonna hook up my nail gun to the air compressor so we can throw some nails in this thing when we glue it. I found that the nail gun is the quickest way to actually put it together. Trying to use screws in the beginning was a horrible idea. On the ones in the floor over there, the very farthest one from what we're seeing now has screws in it, and it actually is not very great. Started splitting a lot of the wood with screws. Taking out the 1.5 inch and adding what looks to be 3/4, 3/4 inch. So I don't go through all the boards. I have accidentally done 1 inch and gone through the entire board and nailed it to the table in the past. I'm going to move you guys up for a little closer view here so that you can watch the process a little bit. I think we've done this in the last video, but I'm just going to go ahead and show this one as much as I can the way through. I switched to Titebond Original instead of the Titebond 2, which I think is outdoor glue. Don't know if it makes a difference. It's just the bottle I grabbed when I was at the store. This is the motor I have set for this one. I'm just checking everything to make sure I have all the parts together. I'm not going to put the motor in right now, but I wanted to verify which switch goes with this gun. So I grabbed the motor to check it. Now that I know which motor it is, I have a lot of trouble here getting it back together because these things are a pain. I am going to do a video specifically on the getting of the motors out of the drills, because in the beginning I had a lot of trouble getting the motors completely apart, and I was using more hacksaw and force to get them apart than the proper method. I've watched a few YouTube videos and I think I have a much better procedure for getting them apart now. So we'll get that motor back together later. I took it apart and it's a pain to get together. Here we're going to just throw our glue on the top piece. I've done this in reverse on accident as well. I put the glue on the bottom piece, and then you go too far with the glue. But if you put it on that piece, then you only put the glue where the woods connect. Got to make sure to put glue around the outside of the handle. There's not much handle left, and I think this is a good spot for me to do some revisions in the file, just because there's not a lot to nail to. And I end up cutting some of it out to get the actual switch in there. Line this one up. This one doesn't have as much of a bow as the other one does. Or maybe it's the reverse, but I'm going to nail this one down. And I think, did I mess this one up? No, this one's fine. It's on the other side that I messed it up a little bit. Had to take it back apart for a second. Yeah, you can see the bow is really bad. Probably should have took some of that bow out before I nailed this side down, because after I put it all together, it still had a little bow in it, but not as much. And we get our first side completely nailed down, and then we go back and add the switch.
A little bit of a lip there. Still quite a bit of a bow. Probably can't see it with this camera because it's such a fisheye look to it. But you can see it there that rocking. Alright. Gotta get the switch and the motor in next before I can go any further. And I gotta find out. I think I'm using this 12-volt one, even though it's not going together properly. I gotta figure that out. The motor's not going together properly, but this is the right one for this switch. So I think I had some broken wires on here. I need to figure out which ones are the switch wires and which ones are the charge wires. So I'm going to clean this up and take a look at that real quick, and before I glue it into the box on the trigger here. No continuity? That would not be it then. Right? Continuity? Wait a minute. I'd have to cross these two for it to work because there's no battery. So I gotta cross these two for that switch to send anything through. Let me trim those. Guessing the white is just some kind of temperature, so I'm leaving that one alone. I'll go with the black and red until we get up to that. Just going to twist the black and red together and check for continuity again with the side panel here. Nothing. Trigger pulled. Side panel. Continuity. I was right. Okay. So those two need to be wires going up to the motor, and those two need to be wires going up to the batteries, and this one does nothing except measure some test on the battery. So not needed. I think it's an overheat for the MOSFET that's sitting right behind that plate, which, don't know. We'll leave it in there for now. I'm going to grab some wire and solder, and we're going to fix this. So I went ahead and put the second side on. Sorry I didn't get a video of that. That is in my other one, I think. And got the switch in here. And all the wires coming through to the top box here. I have to do some sanding. It's really rough around the edges in some spots still. Nailed this on. I actually had a break in the gun right here, but I was able to glue it together, so I think it's going to be okay. But you can see there's a lot of flex right there right now. So, but what we do next actually may help with that, and it may save this gun. So, I'm just going to try and get this in the video here. So the trigger's in here, but my hand's in the way there. So it's really loose. So what we have to do next is what I've been doing, is if you can see, I'm going to bring it up really close so you can probably see this, maybe not. But you see how loose the trigger is? We just put some hot melt glue down along the sides of the trigger inside here, and that holds it. And I was talking about how I've been blowing out the back of the guns to get the triggers in, and I need to revise the file. So you can see that here and here. And this is only on the outer two shells that we're blowing out the back of it. On the center shell, it actually has a little more curve to it. And that was kind of a design feature that I had, where the grip closed in a little bit, but it's actually causing problems with a lot of the different triggers I get. They're just too big to fit in here. So I ended up cutting this out on the drill and putting a router bit in there and just notching it out until the trigger fits. The trigger actually goes right to the back of that. So there's just no room for it to not be there. So what I need to do is in the file, have this curve come just a little less in and come out further right here. And do that on probably all three pieces. Bring it back another, at least a ½ inch on these, and maybe just a ¼ inch on this one. It'll widen my grip a little more, but I think, whoa, sorry about that. It'll widen my grip a little more, but I think I'll be fine with it if I come back, because I'm not hitting that front edge, and I think I can round it still, because the last ¼ inch of it is still there. And not on this side as much, but some of it's still there, not all of it. So now I have to go back in with wood putty and fill these spots in. I actually am going to use some hot melt glue just to keep it in place, and then wood putty over the top of it. So I am ending up filling that in with wood putty anyway. So file on the outside here, file on the outside here, need to modify at least a ½ inch. On the center one, maybe a ¼ inch more. And what else did I need to modify? Oh, in the front, I end up cutting a lot out in the front too. So I need to just cut that out and leave that out, because I do put some hot melt glue in here and then smooth it off, and that will help a little bit with that up there too. And then on the centerpiece, there's a little more up in here I need to do, where I didn't cut out the center as much as I needed to. I need to do that a little more. And down here in the base, I left an area down in the base for the big MOSFETs to fit down in there for overheating. I've noticed that those don't do much for the guns, because these guns are only being used for short bursts. And even if you go through all the rubber bands on the whole thing, you literally are pulling the trigger for 2.5 minutes tops to get all the rubber bands off. This is not being used as it was meant to be in a drill, where you're drilling non-stop. You literally, it takes 20 minutes to reload all the rubber bands, so you have time for everything to cool down between shooting it and firing off the rubber bands. But anyways, after adding that second piece, you can see the bow, which you can't see. There's a little bit of bow. Let me try to get it on the other side, see if I can see it. Yeah, there you go. That's the wires that we're sitting on there. So anyways, there is a little bit of bow. I can't show you because the wires are sticking out, and it's just bouncing on that. But when I put on the second piece, what I did was I flexed the whole thing, the opposite of the bow, laid it down, nailed up here, flexed it really hard, nailed back here, and that pulled the bow back out. I actually overflexed it a little bit, and it still came back a little bit, and the bow is pretty good now. Got a bad spot in the wood there that I just caught my finger on. I need to sand that out. So, and you can see the triggers. Maybe you can't see, but it needs to be sanded up. It's all rough on the edges. This is actually not the good wood that I've been using on my newer ones. This is an old piece of wood I had. So this was one of my original prototypes that I just never finished. I think this was the first prototype I cut with the newest design, and just haven't finished it because I wanted to get into the newer ones. So that's where we are on this one right now. Got both sides on, glued together, wires up. Trigger needs to be glued up with hot melt glue, and then we will get all this done here, and then we'll start moving into the carriage. And I don't think I've shown you guys the build of the carriage. Is that the right thing to call it? I don't know what I'm going to call it, but that's where I take the two spindles, put them on here, and start adding all my tooth things, and then just one at a time. I go in there and I put them together all the way around, but first you got to get these attached to the gun, because you couldn't attach them afterwards because you can't get inside here. So that'll be the next thing. I think I'm going to try and record that. I apologize, my stupid battery system on my camera, I'm literally using this. I took them all apart because they weren't working. So the batteries don't have any cases to them anymore, so the only way I can charge them is, this is kind of funny, I'll show you just because I think it's funny. You guys may think it's crazy. So this is my charging. So 3D printer's going right now. This is my 3D charging station. I plug in this piece right here, which is the original battery charger. You just slot them in here. And then I have some wires coming out because I took the batteries out of their cases trying to figure out what was wrong with them. Ended up being the charger in the camera, not this. And I basically wire them up in here. Negative white. I don't remember if this is right. Oops, that's wrong. The light immediately changes color if I have it wrong to nothing. And if I have it right, and it's charging, well, if it's charged, it's blue, and if it's charging, it's red. So this battery is charged. And then I could show you the other end, but I'll try to show it to you here. Oh dear. That's going into the bottom of my camera. Just, yeah, I know. I will finagle anything together to get it to work, but yeah, so that's the one that's not in. That's the one that's running on right now. And then there's these red and yellow wires that you see hanging out of the bottom of the camera. I soldered them into the actual camera. So this camera's about toast. That's okay because I hate it anyway. It's just the only one I have that does high definition. The other ones I have don't do high definition, so that's why until I buy a new camera, this is what we're going to have to use. I hate throwing money at cameras because they're no fun to me. The fun part is building this and building the CNCs and building the 3D printers and working with the CO2 laser cutters and the powder coaters and all that kind of stuff. Not working with cameras. I hate cameras. I actually hate video editing too, so that's why the videos I put out are pretty just plain, here's everything I'm doing. If you don't like it, don't watch it, I guess. But, I mean, I'm not trying to tell anybody to go away. I don't like doing the video editing. I'm not good at it. So that's why I do the projects, record them when I can, and put them up on YouTube the way they are most of the time. Sometimes I'll add a little bit in there if the sound's really bad, and the sound has been really bad on these videos, I know, because this camera is horrible. So, anyways, that's where we are. We're going to get on the rest of it very soon here in the next step here. That's what we're going to work on.
I'm going to go ahead and mount the gun to this brace here so that I have a place to work on it at. Usually I can use these small clips, but it looks like I'm going to have to use the big ones because the gun's gotten a little fatter as it all goes together. So I will just grab my larger clamps and connect it up. You'd think I'd have plenty of room on the table, but since I just cleaned it up, but apparently I make piles as fast as I clean them up. Once we get it clamped, then we can go ahead and attach the spindle cage with all the gears, tooth gears for the rubber bands to sit in, or the gears with the tooth. Wood pieces for the rubber bands to go on. Gather everything up here, get it all set up, and then I will go through the process of assembly. This is actually my favorite part of the whole gun to build. It's just very satisfying. As I mentioned in the last couple of parts of this video, is that my sound's really gotten bad. And it doesn't help that I'm running the 3D printer in the background, and I'm in the same room with the furnace. So this one got really bad. I just got rid of the sound on this one as well. I have a compressor running every once in a while for the nail gun, the drill. All of it just doesn't work out well for the voiceover. Or work out well, so I'm doing voiceovers. Now, I know these voiceovers aren't great either. In fact, I think I was just filling some paper there next to the speaker, so probably heard that over my voice. Anyways, what I'm doing here is I'm going to go ahead and drill out to put on the sprockets, if that's what we're calling them in this video, because I change what I call them in every video. The wood here has I think it's a 3-ply, and the center piece of wood is really hard, so you have to drill it out really all the way and then add the screws for the sprockets afterwards, because if you don't drill it out, you'll just split it. It's like it's full of sap. It's so hard. I don't know why the center of these pieces of plywood are so hard, but they were really cheap. They were probably $6 for a sheet of plywood, and since I'm getting 3 guns out of 1 sheet of plywood, I could get 3 guns for $6. One of the pieces of plywood I had, and maybe it was this one, that may be part of my problem, was a bit warped. And I don't know if anybody goes to Home Depot, but I go to Home Depot a lot, and they have a section called purple wood. I'm not sure if that's just here where I live or if that's everywhere, but the purple wood is the wood they take off of the shelf, put in the back room or back hallway, and you can buy it for 70% off. Well, I'm all about saving 70%, and if I can find something to do with that scrap wood, then I will. So that's where I think this came from, and since this was a prototype originally, I just wanted to make sure it worked. A little warped, but since I'm sandwiching pieces of wood together, I just reverse the warps and bend them out, and we'll see. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. But again, this is not the official finished product. This is more of the prototype. So I drill them out so that I can get that. And I was actually pushing pretty hard when I was drilling that out, and it still was kind of hard to get the drill bit to go through there. And I find out afterwards that I need to change the drill bit out to a much bigger drill bit. I shouldn't say much bigger, a bigger drill bit, so that the screw doesn't actually split the wood. Because I think if I had just used that first drill bit, I would have split the wood out. So of course I'm looking all over for my drills. If I put everything back where I start at, then at least I know where it is. It's right there on the table in front of me, of course. So we'll start that up, get that drilled out, and we can then start to assemble the sprockets. And I don't know if I talked about this in a previous video, but on these sprockets, they have and now I'm in the room and my heater's blowing again, and I believe that you can hear that on this recording as well, so I apologize. One of these days I'm going to have a good sound system here for you guys. But anyways, as mentioned a second ago, on the sprockets we have a little aluminum insert. That way the screw has something other than wood to spin on. I don't want it to blow out that piece of wood by spinning on it, although like I mentioned earlier, we're only spinning for 2 or 3 minutes. And then on the outside of each aluminum piece, we sandwich that with washers. And the main reason that I put the aluminum in there is not just for wear, it's because when you tighten the screw in, you want the two washers to sandwich that piece of aluminum and not crush it, whereas the wood screw could crush the wood, creating too much tension, and then you would not have free spinning wheels. So we had that piece of aluminum in there. It's slightly larger than the wood, which is a 1/2 inch per se, and the aluminum tube inside of it is an extra 1/16 of an inch, just enough so that the washers are squeezing on the aluminum tube and not on the wood. And that's what gives it its free spin. Now, it'd be nice if I could figure out a way to adjust the tension here at this point with this. That way I wouldn't have to adjust it later, but I think that these are... Is that my cat just walking around in the background? She is just the sneakiest little thing. Anyways, I'm sorry. The tension in it here would be great, but I don't think we could adjust it because these get sandwiched in between all of the toothed gears that we put on later. And we can't get back inside here, so these spinning freely is kind of important because if it got too tight, you couldn't get back in here to loosen it up. And that is the main reason I put the aluminum there, so that it does spin freely. I don't drive it all the way in with a screw gun. I turn around and use a screwdriver to cut that last little bit. If you over crank that, once you strip that piece of wood out on the inside of a plywood or you split it open, it's pretty much toast. You'd have to basically glue it back together and hope. I think there I show the little aluminum sleeve that I put in there. Got my finger underneath the bottom so it doesn't fall out, and then a washer on both sides. And then we seem to have lost our screw. If you pay attention later on, we find that screw about, I don't know, 20 minutes from now. I don't know if it'll be 20 minutes, but later on when I'm moving the gun, it's actually stuck underneath this stupid clamp. So I was kind of like, oh, there's my screw that I couldn't find. Went and got myself a spare one. Got a whole box of them. So then we drive that in with the washers and the aluminum sleeve. And there I'm just showing how freely it spins with that aluminum sleeve. And this one I put in, and I don't think I even started it with the drill because there was just not enough room between the two ends for the drill and the screw head to fit in between the two of them. So I think this one I did completely with a hand screwdriver. Of course, I didn't have my washers and everything set right, so I took it all back apart and put it back together. Yeah, this is the one I couldn't fit it all in, so I just kind of gave up on the drill gun and switched over to the hand screw. And since you drill it out, it's pretty easy. Once these are in, they are real loose, but then when you add the sticks, the tooth tabs between all of them, they tension up because they get a little bow, and you gotta do one at a time. You gotta do the top and then the bottom, and then you gotta flip them a little bit and do the other top and bottom. You're doing the 4 points. And you're just working your way around the whole thing to make sure you're not doing all one side at a time. And now we gotta go get all the parts for that. So I think we'll add all that up and move along. So here we have the spindles on, and we're going to put the grooved rubber band teeth on, and you will see there that everything spins real freely. And all we do to add the teeth in here is we take the tight bind glue, put a little bit on each side of the sprocket, and fit these teeth pieces of wood into those gears. Now the first one is always the hardest one, because those sprockets are real free and loose until you get a couple in there. Usually one helps, but you get 2 in there and it's really solid. But until you get that first one in, it's really it's kind of loose on both ends, and you don't want to twist it to where it's too much to one side or the other. So you got to take it easy with the first one. I need to change out my nails on my nail gun because you have to go through the whole toothed gear and get it into the sprocket. So it's about inch worth of travel, almost, not quite, but almost an inch worth of travel, and you need to make sure you stick it in there a little bit. So
switched up to my 2-inch nails. And in the back, it's not quite that much, but in the front, it's a lot. So we will drive the back one in first. And that's, see that extra tooth knocked out there? That's why the back one's like that, so they can sit down inside there. And I'm not having trouble trying to fit my gun inside there. And the front one doesn't need it because it just has to be flush. So once you get the first one in, you can see it's kind of pinched a little bit, but we'll straighten that out when we have the second one in. The primary thing is to make sure that it doesn't hit the bottom anywhere as it spins around, or the back or front. Once you're clear on all those settings and you're not hitting anywhere, then you know your sprockets are at least in the right spot, and you can go ahead and add all the rest in. You like my new toy there? It's my find at Goodwill this week. It's my Makerspace Workshop sign. I like it. It's got all kinds of changing colors. I went ahead and sped this whole part up because adding these in takes time. It's actually kind of fun though, but there's 12 of them. You just keep flipping around and going around, lining up both ends, make sure they're perfectly aligned. Makes the rubber bands come off easier. And you just do one side, then the other side, then the other side, so that you don't get any pinches in the sprockets as they're going around. Once you get 4 of them on there, it's not going to move pretty much anyway. So you just kind of keep going around, putting them on, glue, nail, glue, nail. Anyways, I'm just going to speed this up so you guys can get through this part. Although this is my favorite part, I don't know if you want to watch me put on 12 of these. So you can get through this and move on to the next thing. You can enjoy my Makerspace sign back there, changing colors while it's going. Next up, we're going to add what is the butt of the gun. This allows you to put your shoulder up against the end of it. The butt of the gun is 2 pieces that are glued together and nailed together. One is just a sleeve around the outside with a little bit of a rounded edge, and then the other one is a full plate that actually has a slot that goes onto the end of the gun. I don't know why, but I always use my finger for glue, and it's kind of messy. Just been doing that for years, and then of course, yes, I do wipe it under the table, and I'm sure the underside of my table is full of glue. Nasty stuff, but that's okay. That's an $8 table. When it gets bad, I flip it over, or I throw it away and get another top. So usually I get that from the purple wood, which if you look closely in the corner there, you'll see that the price is on there, and I usually write that in purple. And I think that sheet of whatever it is, I don't even know what it is, it was like $8 after they marked it down 70%. So it was in 4x8 maybe, I don't know, 5x8, and they just marked it down. So then I come in here and I just shoot some nails into this, 4 nails, 1 on each side and 1 on each end. And then I throw some glue on the end of it and tack it up to the end of the gun. It's a pretty simple part of the gun, but it definitely gives it a feel of authenticity kind of thing. So then I'll take that down to the end and put the glue in there first, obviously. And once I throw the glue in, I just nail it on, and that's the end of that part. It's pretty simple. Mostly accent parts. They add a little bit of detail to the gun, make it look a little more cool. I don't know. So go on and glue them in, nail them in. At some point here, I drive a nail on this 2 inches because I forgot to change right there. I think it is. I'm at the wrong size nail, so I got to switch it up, try and find the right size nail. Get the right size nail in there.
Go through, add the front ones, then I go through and add these side ones. That was a mistake because I really should have added them after the other side. So we'll pull these back off, at least 2 of them back off later. So drive all these on, and these are just, again, accent parts. They don't do much for the gun itself. They just look cool. Then I got to build this box, and this is actually the important box. This is what holds all the electronics in the motor. Here we are adding the rest of the accent parts. I actually had to take off the 2 outer accent parts on the back side when I was adding in the box for the motor because I had to nail it in from the opposite side. So we'll add a few more accent parts here. A lot of them needed sanding still, so you'll catch me throwing some sandpaper down and sanding up the rest of these. Once I get all these accent points on, then I think we're caught up for the videos on the build process, and we will have to go in and start working on building and adding motors and battery packs and some fine-tuned sanding of it, of course. But right now I just go through and I glue and nail in all these little pieces, and there are a lot of little pieces that just make it kind of look cool. My pressure on my nail gun got a little low, so I had to turn the compressor back on and build it back up. I couldn't fire those 2-inch nails with low compression. The smaller ones, the 1-inch ones are fine, but you get down below 60 and you won't fire the 2-inch ones all the way through. And then I just do the last few accent points there. Really liking my new little maker sign there. Kind of cool. Of course, it's just walking itself across the table as I'm building here. I think these are the last 2 parts we're adding in for the accents right here. And I think that's pretty much it. And then we kind of move into the final build. In the next video, we will be doing the motors, and that's about it really. Motor casings and stuff. So we'll see you guys in the next video. Again, glad everybody could stay around and watch. I know these are long videos, but I just want to show everybody what I'm doing here with the gun.